The blizzard outside was raging, a white curtain of snow that erased the world, but inside the obsidian lodge, everything was golden. The fire in the massive stone hearth crackled with the sound of burning birch wood, filling the air with the scent of wood smoke and expensive cinnamon candles. Through the frosted floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see them. My family. They were gathered around a mahogany dining table that was long enough to land a plane on. Crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier. There was roast goose, truffles, and bottles of wine that cost more than most people's monthly car payments. They were laughing. My brother Julian was holding court, gesturing wildly with a fork, probably bragging about some inflated investment return. My mother was beaming at him, her face flushed with pride and Pinot Noir. I stood in the foyer, shaking the snow off my heavy parka. I hadn't been invited. In fact, I had been explicitly told not to come. The email from my mother 3 weeks ago had been brief and surgical. This year, we are celebrating at a private estate in Aspen. It's a very exclusive gathering for Julian's new partners. We think it's best if you stay in the city. You wouldn't fit in, and we don't want to make you uncomfortable with the discrepancy in lifestyles. Discrepancy in lifestyles. That was the polite way of saying, you are poor, you are embarrassing, and we don't want you ruining the aesthetic. I unzipped my coat. I wasn't wearing a tuxedo. I was wearing jeans and a thick flannel shirt. I looked like a local handyman, which, coincidentally, was exactly what they thought I had become. I walked into the dining room. The heavy oak boots I wore made a solid thud against the marble floor. The laughter died instantly. It was as if someone had cut the power cord to the room's joy. "Oh my God," my mother said, her fork clattering onto her plate. She didn't say hello. She didn't say Merry Christmas. She looked at me with the same expression one reserves for a rat found in the pantry. "Liam, what on earth are you doing here?" "Merry Christmas to you too, Mom," I said, my voice raspy from the cold. "I was in the neighborhood." "In the neighborhood?" Julian scoffed, leaning back in his chair. He looked slick, his hair gelled back, wearing a velvet dinner jacket that looked ridiculous. "We are in Aspen, Liam. This is a gated estate on a private mountain. You don't just happen to be in the neighborhood unless you're delivering pizza. Did you follow us here? Stalking is a new low, even for you." "I needed to check on something," I said calmly, looking around the room. I noticed a crack in the plaster near the fireplace that hadn't been there last week. I made a mental note, and since the storm closed the roads, I figured I'd stop by. "Well, you can't stay," my father grumbled from the head of the table. He didn't even turn to look at me. He was busy carving the goose. "There's no room. All the suites are taken. And we have guests arriving, Julian's investors. We can't have you lingering. It looks bad." "I don't need a suite," I said. "I just need to warm up before I head back out." "Head back out?" My mother stood up, her napkin clutching in her hand. "Liam, look at you. You're dripping melted snow on the Persian rug. Do you know how much the deposit is on this place? This represents the pinnacle of luxury rental. If we lose the security deposit because you tracked mud in, you're paying for it." "Oh wait. You can't." The table erupted in small, cruel chuckles. Even the cousins who used to play video games with me when we were kids covered their mouths to hide their smirks. This was the dynamic. It had always been the dynamic. I remember when I was 12, the black sheep year. My parents had bought Julian a computer because he showed executive potential by bossing the neighborhood kids around. They bought me a set of paintbrushes because I was sensitive. When I said I wanted to learn code, they laughed. "Coding is for workers, Liam. Swansons are owners. We manage people who code." By 20, when I dropped out of business school to start a tech incubator in a garage, I was officially exiled. They cut me off. No trust fund. No invites to the gala. Just a cold shoulder and the occasional check for $50 on my birthday, usually accompanied by a note suggesting I apply for a manager position at a retail store. They saw my silence as failure. They saw my lack of flashiness as poverty. When I showed up to family events in a truck instead of a sports car, they assumed I was struggling. They didn't know I drove a truck because I was renovating properties I bought with cash. They didn't know I wore flannel because I spent my days on site, managing projects worth more than my father's entire portfolio. "Seriously, Liam," Julian said, standing up and walking over to me. He stood too close, smelling of cologne and arrogance. You need to leave. Now. The investors will be here in an hour. If they see this, he gestured up and down my body, they might think we're related to the help. It could tank the deal. The deal? I asked, raising an eyebrow. A massive real estate merger, Julian bragged, puffing out his chest. We're pivoting the family fund into luxury hospitality. That's why we rented this place. The Obsidian Lodge. It's the flagship property of the most exclusive rental group in the state. We're trying to get a meeting with the owner of the holding company. He's a ghost, nobody knows who he is, but we heard he might be in Aspen. I fought the urge to smile. So, you rented this place to impress the owner of this place? It's called strategy, Liam. Something you'd understand if you ever made more than minimum wage, Julian sneered. Now get out. Go wait in your truck. Or go to the servants' quarters in the back. The garage has a heater. But you are not eating at this table. The garage. I repeated. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees, and it wasn't because of the storm. Yes, the garage, my mother chimed in, sitting back down and reaching for her wine. And take your boots off before you walk through the kitchen. Honestly, Robert, why didn't we hire security? I told you strays would come sniffing around if they smelled the food. I looked at them. Really looked at them. They weren't just mean, they were delusional. They were sitting in a $15 million mansion, eating food they probably bought on credit, trying to impress an invisible billionaire, while kicking their own son out into a blizzard. I'm not going to the garage, I said softly. Excuse me. My father stopped carving. He turned around, the knife glinting in the firelight. This is a private rental, Liam. My name is on the lease. That makes this my house for the week. And I am telling you to leave. Your name is on the lease? I asked, reaching into the inner pocket of my parka. Yes. And I will call the police if I have to, my father shouted, his face reddening. I will have you escorted off the property for trespassing. You don't need to call the police, I said, pulling out a folded piece of paper. It wasn't a weapon. It was a tablet. I tapped the screen, bringing up the smart home control interface for the estate. And you might want to check the lease agreement again, Dad. Specifically the clause regarding owner's access rights. What are you talking about? Julian snapped. Put that cheap tablet away. I'm talking about the heating, I said. I slid my finger across the screen. Instantly, the roaring fire in the hearth died down to a simmer as the gas feed was cut. The ambient lights, which had been set to a warm golden glow, suddenly shifted to a harsh, clinical bright white, like an operating room. The holiday music cutting through the speakers stopped abruptly, replaced by a loud automated voice that echoed through the high ceilings. System alert. Unauthorized occupancy detected in master dining hall. Tenant violation recorded. The room went silent. The only sound was the wind howling outside, louder now that the fire was dying. Turn it back, Julian shouted, shielding his eyes against the harsh clinical light that was now flooding the room. You hacked the Wi-Fi, didn't you? You petty little. Give me that tablet. He lunged for me across the marble floor, but I simply took a step back. He slipped on the wet snow I had tracked in, the same snow they had mocked me for, and went down hard on one knee. Careful, I said, my voice cutting through the automated alarm that was still blaring. You scuffed that marble, Julian, and it's coming out of your inheritance. Oh wait, there isn't one, is there? Turn off that damn alarm, my father bellowed, his face turning purple. I am calling the management company right now. I will have you arrested for cyber vandalism. Do you know who runs this place? The Obsidian Group. They are the most powerful real estate firm in the Rockies. They don't tolerate trash like you messing with their systems. My father pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling with rage as he scrolled through his contacts. I have the direct line for the Platinum Concierge. I was told to use this only for extreme emergencies. Well, having a squatter interrupt my Christmas dinner counts. My mother was practically hyperventilating. Robert, tell them to send security. Tell them to bring the police. He's ruining the ambience. The investors will be here any minute. I'm dialing, my father yelled. He put the phone to his ear, glaring at me with pure hatred. You're done, Liam. You're actually done. I'm going to make sure you spend Christmas in a cell." The room went silent, save for the ringing tone coming from my father's speakerphone. Ring, ring. I stood there calm watching them. I felt a vibration in my pocket. Ring. I reached into my jeans pocket and pulled out my phone. A black unbranded smartphone. Ring. The sound of a ringtone, a classic old-school telephone bell, echoed through the dining room. It was coming from my hand. My father frowned, lowering his phone slightly. He looked at his screen, then at me. He looked confused. He hit end call. My phone stopped ringing. "Coincidence," Julian muttered, standing up and brushing off his knees. "He probably set an alarm to annoy us." "Try again, Dad," I said, smiling. "Maybe the reception is bad in here. The walls are reinforced stone after all. Cost a fortune to insulate." My father narrowed his eyes. He pressed call again. Ring. My phone lit up instantly. Ring. I swiped the screen to answer. I held the phone up to my ear. "Obsidian Group Executive Office," I said into the phone. My eyes locked on my father's. "This is the owner speaking. How can I help you, Mr. Swanson?" My father's voice came through the speaker of his phone and the air in the room simultaneously. "What?" He dropped his hand. The call disconnected. "You," my mother whispered. She looked around the massive dining hall, the 30-foot ceilings, the imported Italian chandeliers, the heated floors, which were now rapidly cooling down. "You work for the management company? You're the janitor? The maintenance guy? God, you people are dense," I sighed. I tapped the tablet again. The harsh lights dimmed slightly, but the room remained cold. The alarm stopped. "I don't work for the management company, Mom. I am the management company. I founded Obsidian Group 4 years ago. This house? Obsidian Lodge? I designed it. I built it. And I own it." "Bullshit," Julian spat. But his voice lacked conviction. He was looking at my boots. The same heavy boots I wore on construction sites. Sites he had probably driven past without a second thought. "You're broke. You drive a pickup truck." "I drive a Ford Raptor because it handles the terrain when I'm scouting locations for $50 million resorts," I corrected him. "And I wear flannel because I actually work for a living, Julian. Unlike you, who plays investor with Dad's dwindling retirement fund." I walked over to the head of the table. My father was still standing there, frozen, the carving knife hanging limply in his hand. "By the way," I said, picking up a bottle of wine, a vintage Cabernet. I inspected the label. "You put this on the house account, right? Along with the catering and the ski lift passes." It's included in the package," my father stammered. He was shrinking. The bluster was evaporating, replaced by a dawning, terrifying realization. "Actually, the Platinum package requires a pre-authorization of $50,000 on a valid credit card," I said. "I got a notification this morning from my billing department. Do you know what it said, Dad?" I didn't wait for an answer. It said declined. Insufficient funds. The silence this time was heavy, suffocating. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Julian looked away, his face pale. "You're broke," I said, stating it as a fact, not a question. "You're here, posing in my house, eating my food, trying to land a deal to save yourselves from bankruptcy. And the credit card you used to book this place is maxed out. It's a liquidity issue," Julian shouted, desperate to regain control. "We have assets. We just need to move some capital around. Once the merger goes through with the Obsidian Group, we'll be..." He stopped. He choked on the words. He looked at me. He looked at the logo on the napkin he was holding, a stylized black mountain. Then he looked at the logo on my tablet. "The merger," Julian whispered. "The investor we're supposed to meet. The ghost." "Hello, Julian," I said, spreading my arms. "I heard you have a pitch for me. Something about luxury hospitality? I assume you were planning to use my own money to pay me back for staying in my own house." My father sank into his chair. He looked like he had aged 20 years and 20 seconds. "Liam, you're the chairman?" "I am," I said. "And I have to say, your pitch isn't going well. The hospitality has been lacking." I believe the phrase was "go to the garage." "We didn't know," my mother wailed, tears starting to stream down her face. Liam, baby, we didn't know it was you. We were just stressed. You know how your father gets. We love you. We were just trying to protect the family image. The family image, I repeated, looking at the congealing goose on the table. You excluded me because I was a black sheep. You thought I was a stain on your perfect picture. But it turns out, I'm the only one who can afford the frame. I checked my watch. Now, about those investors you said were arriving in an hour? The partners Julian was bragging about. They're running late, Julian muttered, looking at the floor. No, they're not, I said. Because they aren't coming. I canceled their gate access codes 10 minutes ago. You what? Julian screamed. You can't do that. That's sabotage. It's property management, I said cold. I have a strict policy against unauthorized commercial activity on my residential properties, especially when the tenants haven't paid the rent. I tapped the tablet one last time. The lights went out completely. The only illumination came from the dying embers in the fireplace and the blue glow of my screen. The heating system is now fully off, I announced in the darkness. It's currently 10 degrees below zero outside. The interior temperature will drop to freezing in about 40 minutes. You're going to freeze us to death? My mother shrieked in the dark. No, I said. I'm giving you a choice. The same choice you gave me. A choice? My father stammered in the dark. I could see his breath now, forming small white clouds in the rapidly cooling air. The mansion was built with stone and glass. Without the heating system I designed specifically to counter the altitude, it became an icebox within minutes. Yes, I said, the blue light of my tablet illuminating my face from below. Choice A. You pay the outstanding balance for the rental, the catering, and the damages. That comes to roughly $62,000. If the transaction clears, I'll turn the heat back on, and you can stay until morning. Then you leave. We don't have that kind of liquidity right now, Julian whispered, shivering in his velvet jacket. I told you the funds are tied up. Then we go to choice B, I said calmly. You leave. Now. It's a blizzard, my mother shrieked, clutching her shawl tight. You can't throw your own mother out in a blizzard. We'll freeze. The Range Rover won't make it down the driveway without the heated pavers turned on. Ah, right, I said. I turned those off too. Energy conservation. This is attempted murder, my father shouted, though his teeth were chattering. There is a choice C, I interrupted. The same choice you offered me 10 minutes ago. They went silent. They knew exactly what I was going to say. The garage, I said. It has a separate heating unit. It's insulated. There's a bathroom and a cot. It's a bit cramped for 4 people, but it's warm. If you want to stay on the property tonight without paying, that's where you sleep. My mother looked at the table, laden with the cold luxury dinner they hadn't finished. Then she looked at the dark, looming shadows of the great hall. I am not sleeping in a garage, she hissed. I am a Swanson. Then you're a frozen Swanson, I said, turning away. I'm going to the master suite. It has a fireplace. And I'm locking the door to the main house in 5 minutes. If you're still in here, I call the sheriff. And unlike the Platinum Concierge, the sheriff actually answers my calls. I walked up the grand staircase, my heavy boots echoing on the steps. I didn't look back. I heard them arguing. I heard my mother crying. I heard Julian cursing. 5 minutes later, from the balcony of the master bedroom, I watched through the glass. The front door opened. A blast of snow swirled into the foyer. My family, my father in his expensive loafers, my mother in her silk dress, and Julian in his velvet, trudged out into the storm. They didn't go to the garage. Their pride wouldn't let them. They climbed into their rented Range Rover. I watched the headlights flicker on. I watched the wheels spin uselessly on the icy, unheated driveway for 10 minutes. They slid backward, almost hitting a pine tree. Finally, the headlights turned off. They weren't going anywhere. Then I saw the interior light of the car turn on. They were huddled together inside the vehicle, engine running, waiting out the storm in the driveway of the mansion they pretended to own. I picked up the house phone and dialed the gatehouse. Security, a voice answered. Hey Mike, I said. There's a vehicle idling in the driveway. They're unauthorized, but let them stay until the plow comes in the morning. Just make sure they don't try to come back inside. Copy that, Mr. Swanson. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Mike. I sat in the leather armchair by the fire, poured myself a glass of the vintage bourbon my father had opened but never tasted, and watched the snow fall. It was the quietest, most peaceful night of my life. Epilogue. 10 months later. The launch party for Obsidian Heights, our new eco-resort in Patagonia, was in full swing. The room was filled with actual investors, tech moguls, and people who created things rather than just consuming them. I was standing by the bar when my assistant, Sarah, handed me a tablet. "We have a flag on an application for the junior sales associate role," she said. "The algorithm rejected it, but since the last name matched yours, it kicked it to manual review." I looked at the screen. Applicant, Julian Swanson. Previous experience, VP of Swanson Holdings. Dissolved. Current employment, rideshare driver. I stared at the photo. Julian looked tired. His hair wasn't gelled. He looked older. "Do you want to interview him?" Sarah asked. "Family preference?" I thought about the garage. I thought about the black sheep. I thought about the years of exclusion. "No," I said, handing the tablet back. "Treat him like any other applicant. If he meets the criteria, hire him. If he doesn't, don't." "He doesn't meet the criteria," Sarah noted. "He lacks the technical certification." "Then send the standard rejection letter," I said. "And your parents?" she asked gently. She knew the story. "Your father sent another email to the corporate inbox. He's asking for a loan against the family name." "The family name has no value, Sarah," I said, taking a sip of sparkling water. "Tell him the bank is closed." I walked out onto the balcony. The wind was warm here in the southern hemisphere. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my real family, the friends I had made in the trenches, the developers who slept in the office with me during crunch time, the people who loved me when I had nothing. "Group dinner in 10 minutes. We saved you a seat." I smiled. "I'm on my way," I whispered. I didn't need a mansion to feel rich, but owning one certainly made the view better when I finally closed the door on the past.